I just didn't feel good about myself. And my girlfriend left because I wasn't a bad person. I just didn't have a lot to offer. I was just a shell of myself. And when she left me, Rick, I had to look in the mirror. And I realized that I am not what I claim to be, and I am not what people think I am.
What's shaking? Welcome back to All In. I'm pumped today because I love interviewing other podcasters, because these usually have the most fire of any episodes that we do, because we just have these wonderful exchanges. And get ready for this. You're going to want to share this episode out with at least 3 people today. If you like podcasts, if you want to start a podcast, if you think you want to do anything with building a network or talking with other people, period, you're going to want to share this out today, because my guest has done over 800 episodes. That's amazing. In his podcast, Next Level University, Kevin Palmieri, welcome to the show.
Rick, thank you so very much for having me. And if it's any indication, our conversation behind the scenes, I am very excited to chat today, and I'm sure it will be awesome.
Dude, same here, man. Same here. 800 episodes. You know, when I was reading about you a couple days ago before our session today, man, I was like, good Lord, that's amazing. You know? There's only one. It's difficult, to say the least. We do one a day. We do seven a week, every single day, 6 solos, 1 guest. And I always like to say this: we didn't start there. We started with 1, just like everybody else. So don't let that number make you think you can't start. Everybody's journey starts in a different place and ends in a different place. So that's so cool, man. The only other show that I know that has so many episodes like that is Entrepreneurs on Fire with JLD. Yes. I've been on his show before too, man. And it's a good show. He's a good dude, by the way, too. A good veteran, right, of our armed forces as well. But man, I'm pumped because you made me think about something. You know, nowadays we do 2 a week at All In, and we started with 1 a week way back when too. And we just shifted over maybe about 2 years into it. You know, when did you make that shift? Because you started with 1 year, and how did you see that ramp up to the 7 where you're at right now?
So I started this by myself. It started off as the hyper conscious podcast, because for most of my life, I was living unconsciously. And I said, what's the opposite of that? Hyper conscious. Awesome. So I started doing 1. Then when I partnered with my business partner, Alan, we went up to 2 in year 2. Then we interviewed Evan Carmichael, and Evan Carmichael said, hey, you guys aren't doing enough. You have to do more. And he challenged us to do another episode. So I think we went up to 3. Then I think we might have gone from 3 to 5, and then 5 to 7. So it was kind of like year 1, 1, 2, 2 to 3 was probably year 2. And then the last couple of years, it's just really, really grown a lot, for sure.
That's so cool, man. I love it when those individuals come into our lives and we don't even expect it, right? And they just challenge us to step it up. He's like, I love what you're doing, but you could do more. Yeah, it was a nice kick in the butt, you know, and he mentored us for a while, which was wonderful. He's a really good human being. We learned a lot from him, but it's that challenge of somebody who is where you want to be. Yeah. That maybe they see parts of themselves in you and they can say, hey, look, I know where you were. I know what you're doing. You got to ramp it up, and you're capable of ramping it up. And I think that's an important thing, especially from somebody who wants to see you win. Yeah. You know, they have your best interest at heart. That's so cool, man. I love that. You mentioned something in how you said, you know, you started this way back when it was called the Hyperconscious Podcast originally. And before that, you said I can't remember how you phrased it, but it was like you were without consciousness almost for a long period of your life. You know, because I know in your bio, you know, it says that you hit rock bottom, you know, and this was around your mid-20s or so, but it was in the midst of having pretty much everything, right? Is when this happened. Tell me your story, dude.
Yeah. So I grew up in a single parent household. I was raised by my mom and my grandmother, mom and Mima, as I call her. Oh, cool. And when all of my friends decided to go to college, I said, that's not for me. At the time, I was training to fight professionally, and I'm not going to go to college. I don't want the debt. I don't know what I want to do with my life. I'll figure it out. So I just job hopped from job to job to job to job. And I got this really unique opportunity when I was 20, I think I was 24 at the time, or 23, where I went to this class for 2 weeks. And at the end of this class, you got hooked up with a job in the weatherization industry. So just think energy efficiency in state-owned buildings. Yeah. And we get to the final exit interview, and they said, you did great. We have a company for you. The only downside is there's a lot of travel involved. And I said, not for me. I don't want to do it. And they said, but you're going to be making anywhere from $50 to $100 an hour. And I said, what are you talking about? There's 0% chance this is real. And, you know, as a kid in his early 20s with no college degree, I'm in. So my first job, I met my boss the week prior. I get into a car with him. We drive from Massachusetts to Delaware. We stay in this unbelievably nice rented house, and I go do a job that I've never done before with people I've never met. And that turned into me making a lot of money, which seemed like the answer to everything. Yeah. And, you know, I did that for a couple of years, and my rock bottom, I actually have a rock bottom and a rock bottom basement, but my rock bottom was when I was 25. I had the car, I had the body, I had the model girlfriend, I had money in the bank, I had all the things that you could think you wanted, but I was super insecure, I was super unconfident, I was depressed, I was anxious, I just didn't feel good about myself. And my girlfriend left me because I wasn't a bad person, I just didn't have a lot to offer. I was just a shell of myself. And when she left me, Rick, I had to look in the mirror and I realized that I am not what I claim to be, and I am not what people think I am. I am terrified of everything, even though I have tattoos and I'm a bodybuilder. I'm not what people think I am. And for me, that was my initial dive into self-improvement. I started listening to Tony Robbins, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, you know, all those things that people get into in the very beginning. And I remember that I would lay in bed and it was just quiet and lonely and this empty feeling. And I used to say positive affirmations before I went to bed. I said, I am handsome, I am talented, I am worthy, I am intelligent, and this year I'll make the most money I've ever made. Problem is, I leaned into that last one more than the other four. And the next year I got a promotion. I was the foreman of this company. And out of the 12 months, I was on the road for 10. And when I say on the road, I mean, I was home 4 days out of the week. I was only home Saturdays.
Wow.
And I loved it though, because I was making a ton of money. And that drove me. I loved it. I would do anything. We were driving 8 hours, working 8 hours. I was going to the gym. It was heavy, but I loved the paychecks. And I remember standing at my kitchen table, opening, I didn't have any chairs because my ex had taken them and I never got any because I wasn't home, so it didn't matter. And I was opening my final pay stub and I said, did I do that? Did I make my 6 figures that I wanted to make? No college degree. Did I do it? And I did, but nothing changed. It was the same thing of, I did it again. I thought all this external success was going to bring me happiness. And that's when I really decided that I wanted to go all in on the podcast. And it got harder and harder for me to go to work because almost overnight, I stopped caring about the job. I stopped caring about the money. I was calling out. I was leaving work early. At one point, I was sleeping in my bed from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m, getting up and driving 6 hours to New Jersey straight to the job.
Wow.
And just not sleeping. I was working out at all hours of the night. And the biggest shift in my life, I was sitting on the edge of a hotel bed, Rick, in New Jersey. I was lacing up my work boots, cold morning, winter, dark, just grungy hotel. And I'm lacing up my work boots. And the best way to explain it is there's 10 televisions on in my head at the same time. And every single one is on a different channel. And one is saying, you're stuck here. 2 is saying, how are you so miserable? 3 is saying, what are your friends going to think if you leave this job? What will your family think? And the loudest one is, do you really think you can be a successful podcaster? And in that moment, I genuinely felt like the best thing for me to do would be to end my life, because if I ended my life, I took my problems with me. Luckily, I have a wonderful, supportive business partner I messaged, and he talked me off the ledge, so to speak. And 3 months later, I left my job and went full time into speaking, coaching, and podcasting. And I would love to say that's everything was easy and it just worked. Obviously it didn't. There's a lot that goes into that, but that was the pivotal point in my life where I went from old Kevin to new Kevin, and greatest thing, but also the most painful thing that's ever happened.
Yeah, for sure, man. You're really touching my heart with your story today too.
I appreciate that.
And that transition period, I'm thinking, because it's difficult to, I'm sure it was difficult from sitting on the edge of your bed in that moment. And when you said, hey, I'm going all in on the show, that's not like a cut and dry shift or pivot, is it? No. There's probably some lingering stuff that carried in. How did you deal with all that too? Because when those feelings crop back up again on you.
Yeah. So it was very much, when I left my job, it was a huge weight lifted off my shoulders. Yeah. It was this weird, surreal moment of like, wait, I don't ever have to go do that again. shortly followed by, oh God, what do I do now? Like, I'm not gonna be able to pay the bills. What do I do here?
It's like your identity for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. It was this weird, comforting, but also terrifying feeling. Now, the beautiful thing is I had kind of set myself up for this. I moved in with my buddy. My rent went from $1,400 to $500. We were splitting cable. We were splitting electric. We were splitting everything. So I cut my bills by like a third or maybe a quarter, setting myself up for that. Honestly, I didn't look back, Rick. It was the best thing I ever did. There was very little part of me that said you made a mistake or regretted it or doubted it. Now, in fairness, my business partner is an amazing business person, MBA, very intelligent, one of the best technical schools in the world. So I'm grateful to be paired with that. And that's an important part of the story. I can't take credit for all this, but he's been my mentor since the beginning. So I've always had somebody in my corner. And I think my circle is very small, very tight, but very focused on growth. So that was almost me taking the training wheels off and saying, like, let's do it. Let's just see what happens here. And we'll figure it out, or we'll go broke and die trying.
That's awesome, man. You leaned into it hardcore. Obviously, you went all in, and that's what this show's about. That's the theme of my life. And you started it out as hyper conscious, right? Mm-hmm. And was that almost, I have this envision of you, like to where you were coming from and everything. It's like, watch what I'm going to do. And you're just like giving it the finger right in the middle. It's like, I was unconscious there, but now watch this, here's me going forward now. Yep. That's so cool that you dove into that way. How did it become, because you were doing one episode a week, but how did it become Next Level University, and then you had a coaching program around that too. And all this started with a podcast, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting because the one thing, I've coached a lot of podcasters and we have a lot of clients. And the one thing I notice is the people who succeed at podcasting are the ones who treat it like a business. And the ones who don't succeed are the ones who do it just for passion. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but a business requires being built, and it requires leadership, and it requires monetization. And I think a lot of people, they have a very short vision of what they want their podcast to be, where my goal is to have the most successful podcast in the self-improvement space. So what will that take? That's not going to, I can't do one episode a week. It's not going to work. And the other part of that, the deeper part, is if you want to be the best at something, you have to master it more than anybody else. So I'm just convinced if I do more reps than anybody else, I'll just be better because I've just spent more time in front of the mic. And if I'm not relatively good at this point, I am in trouble, and I've invested a lot of time into something that's not going to pay.
Well, and the rep reference from the bodybuilding, I saw some of your photos when I was researing you too, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Amazing. Yeah.
Thank you. And that's taking something concrete like fitness and bringing it into a 1% improvement over time, a 1% improvement over 850 episodes. That adds up. So I'll say this. Alan and I realized that if we want to have the impact that we want to have, we have to monetize quicker than most other human beings. Took us a long time to monetize, too long. But now I don't care nearly as much as the listens as I do about how much money we're bringing in, because I realize that money is now feeding the mission. So most podcasters, or many that I've seen, only care. The number that they are caring about more than anything is listens. I think that's super important. I care more about how much money we're making as a business, because the podcast is the top of the funnel for the business. Yeah. And the business and the coaching and the speaking and the group coaching and the services, that's what actually drives revenue. And I think it's an important thing that if you're doing something and it's not making money, it's going to be very hard for you to pour money back into that. And it's just not sustainable. It's going to burn out.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's any business, or that's even anything in life, right?
Yeah.
I even going to the gym, let's say, and I've noticed this, right? Because I work out at home, and that's how I've put the muscle mass on that I have. But I noticed that it was an issue for me to go to the gym. That was one of the barriers that I had, so I don't need to be around a group or anything like that. But I then invested in my own equipment at home, just like somebody would invest in a gym membership or something like that. I found out too that if you don't have that investment into whatever you're doing, just like you're talking about right now, you will just do it and it will fail. Because there is no more money that's invested back into it. It's almost everything in our lives has to have some sort of investment and skin in the game in order to have it mean something.
Yeah. You need necessity. If there's no necessity, there's no reason. If there's no reason, the first convenient excuse that comes along is going to be the all right one. I'm in a lot of podcast groups, and somebody said this recently, and I don't mean this to disparage this person, but it's just the mindset of it. This person wrote and said, hey, why should I pay for a podcast host when I can just host on YouTube for free? And it's like, if you're not willing to spend $9.99 to get your message out there, either you don't value your message, or you're not sure of it, or you're not as committed as you need to be in order to get the results that you probably want. And I think that's just a lesson for life overall. For sure. It's so interesting because as we were talking, a little before the show, it's like the stuff for this show, for All In, is on YouTube. Everything's there, but there's no money that's invested there whatsoever. So you look at it, and it's just up there just to have video, for clips or whatever else. All of the dollars that have been reinvested back into this is into the audio platforms, which is thousands of dollars. And that's how it's been able to fulfill its purpose and its reason. Yeah. It's a different mindset. I mean, you're investing in the growth where other people are just trying to say, like, I want to get the most results with the bare minimum effort. Now, I think you want to get the most results with the lowest viable amount of effort in terms of finances and productivity and efficiency. Yes, but you have to start somewhere. You have to start at level one. And I think a lot of people are trying to sneak in under the bar, and it's just not a sustainable thing. For sure, man. So going back to when you started the show, 1 episode a week, you said, right? Mm-hmm. You quit your job. I understand you reduced your expenses. How the heck were you paying the bills? I saved money, luckily. And the other part of it, and I love telling this because I don't think a lot of people are willing to, I also ran $35,000 up on credit cards. I lived off of my savings and I lived off of credit cards for the next 2 years. And I went broke and I struggled, and that was it. I didn't do a lot of nice things that other people were doing because I didn't have the money. I didn't have the resources, but I focused on building myself, my character, my abilities. That's what I did. I used the $10K I had in the bank, and I used $35,000 worth of credit cards to survive for the next few years until we started getting clients. Yeah, that's awesome. It's really cool. All your shows at the top of the funnel too. And that goes into the coaching program after that. Is that So we have we have so many things. It's just free. And then it's one-on-one coaching, group coaching. It all depends on the person. Our thing is I have podcast clients who are multimillionaires. I have podcast clients who also don't really have a job other than the podcast, and they're trying to figure it out. They're early entrepreneurs. So our goal is to have a fit for anybody wherever they are in life. Easier said than done because that requires a lot of back end stuff. But yeah, it's one-on-one, group, consulting. We have services, different things. Yeah. That's awesome. For somebody that's just starting out, because I keep using this phrase, and maybe I should come up with something different, but it was like over the past 2 years, with all the work from home stuff, it was like everybody and their grandmother started a podcast. Yeah. I was going on before then, which was great. This was already gaining some momentum, but what's the average number these days? At one time it was like 7 episodes, right? That the average podcast lasts or something like that? Between 7 and 21 before pod fade kicks in. Yeah. That's insane, man. And I was talking with a platform host, the owner of a host that's out there. And he was saying that a lot of these pod faded shows are even available for purchase too, which is intriguing to me. It's because there's so many of these shows out there that have some sort of subscribers, but they just died, and what do you see as the reason for that? Because you have so many that start on these things, and I'm sure you see them when they've been going for a while, like the multimillionaires, some people that are just starting. What's the biggest reason you see for the pod fade? It's hard, and you don't see any results. It's like the gym. I started a diet at the beginning of November, which is not good. Don't do that because there's too many holidays. Right before the holidays, yeah, not a good decision. But I track my weight, I track my calories, I graph it out. And the first 13 days, I didn't lose any weight. I gained weight in peaks and valleys, and then it started to level out. Podcasting, you're not going to see results for a long time. And what I find now, particularly, is as the barrier of entry gets lower, for some reason, the expectations of success go up. I don't know why that is. Yeah. That's what I've seen is it's easy. All you need is a cell phone and a pair of headphones, and you can go right on Anchor Anchor FM, start your own podcast. Super easy. You can do the editing on your phone, but
for your mom and your two friends, right?
Yeah, of course. Right. Yep. Anybody. And I think it's that, and it's the fact that it was a wave. So Clubhouse, everybody said, Kev, why aren't you on Clubhouse? It's a wave. Yeah, it's a wave. I don't want to be on there. I'm a podcaster. I'm going to keep podcasting. I think that podcasting is somewhat of a new wave where people jump on, and when they realize this isn't delivering me to where I want to go, they jump off. And I just think it's just a flashy thing. It's the flashy thing that if you don't have the passion for it, it's very hard to continue, particularly if you're not willing to do it for free. Yeah. Because the vast majority, 99% of podcasts do not make $1. Right on. Ever.
I see.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, this is interesting too. And we could probably even have long conversations about this, because all in, we don't do sponsors. We don't do promotions, anything like that whatsoever. Yep. All of our growth has been organic. Every single bit of it has been, just like yours, which is, I feel, the way to go for the most part. There's no monetization, no direct monetization of the show. So it's a passion that, like you're saying, that is the reason that I do this, to give other people exposure. But at the same time, there is a reason for it, because it contributes and brings credibility to everything else that we do. Whether it's the cybersecurity company, whether it's public speaking, whether it's global media, which all ties back to the things that do produce money. This becomes one of those reasons. So how are you about doing shows? Because you said 99% of them, maybe qualify that a little bit, don't make money, but does that mean that they don't monetize them directly to you, or would they have a benefit elsewhere?
So I would say across the board, 99% of overall podcasts started out of I think it's probably 2.4 million now. They do not ever collect a dime in alignment with their show or brand. And the reason is, there's a couple of reasons. Not everybody. And I get very fired up about this, and I try not to sound negative. I don't want to sound negative, but I do think it's a mistake to do it this way. So many people say, I want to grow an audience so I can run ads. Why don't you just create a product or service and run ads for yourself?
Yeah.
That's a sustainable business model. If you're relying on somebody else to send you money, depending on the amount of listens, it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. So I just don't think people have the business sense.
For sure.
And I didn't in the beginning. I've relied heavily on my business partner. Again, he's very good at business. So if you don't have a way to monetize in terms of a product, a service, a community, something to add value, which many people don't, because that's not why they start the podcast. They start the podcast because they want to get an advertiser who will pay them X amount per 1,000 downloads. The problem is, it's going to take you way long to get 1,000 downloads per episode.
Yeah, right.
So
on.
you're going to be hustling for nothing. So I think a lot of people go in with the wrong intention. Where I had a client recently, I think she was 7 or 8 months into her podcast, and she said, I really want to start monetizing. I said, cool, this is what you do. You take a mid-roll and you offer coaching. When somebody reaches out, you give them a free call, totally free. Do not even try to sell them. Just add value and then see what happens. And then she got 3 clients. Like, awesome. Cool. That's an extra however much you charge a month. Yep. It's huge. It's huge.
I love that. Even those who I've seen say, well, I'm just going to put it on YouTube and I'll allow them to run ads during my show. Yeah. I saw the stats, because I've never even pursued that either, but I was looking at the thresholds for that, and it's 1,000 subscribers. Fine. That doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but then it's 4,000 watch hours per year.
Yeah.
That's the big, before YouTube even accepts you to be able to be part of their partner program. In order to run the ads. That's a lot of watch hours, man, for somebody who's only thinking 7 to 21 episodes and then I'm going to fade away.
Yeah. Yeah. And the other thing too is we see, and again, I mean this with all the love to everybody, but like, we're not Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
There's one Joe Rogan. There's a lot of other shows, Entrepreneurs on Fire. You talked about that.
Yeah.
But he was doing it at the very beginning. He's been doing it. I don't even know how many episodes he has, thousands and thousands at this point. So, for reference, and I don't think a lot of people would agree with this, Joe Rogan selling his podcast to Spotify was not a good business move for Joe Rogan, because now if he's exclusive on one platform, he can't monetize on the other ones like he would have. Did he make 100 million for 10 years? Yes, sure. But he has billions of listens. If he had merchandise or if he had something else, he could have monetized in a different way. He doesn't want to do it, understandable, because he's got so many other things going on. But I do believe the overall thought there is, well, I'll just let somebody else monetize for me. Yes, it's possible, but it's not the same. It's not the same.
Right on. When you have complete control of your products and services and the funnel that goes into them, that's where you make the most money.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you can do whatever you want.
Right.
That's the other thing. There's nobody telling you like, hey, I know you want to have this person on, but it's not in alignment with the brand. It's like, well, I thought the brand was mine.
Right. I love that. For every branding agency out there that's ever said, no, you can't do this because right there, listen to Kevin. Dude, this is phenomenal. You know, this is great advice for anybody who's looking to start anything in the podcasting realm. And, you know, let's look for some tangible things, right? Because a lot of the stuff, we've been giving some very good strategy and mindset and everything. How about some tangible things? You're just starting out, right? Yep. What's a good way? Because this is where I think imposter syndrome can kind of creep into, to where it's like, well, if I don't have it sounding the best, or if it doesn't look the best, you know, or if I have to, you know, get ready and put my notes down for the 10 first episodes first before I even press record. You know, all these things that come into play that say, oh, well, you shouldn't start yet. You know, what's the best way to just get up off your ass and do it?
Yeah. What helps me and has helped a lot of people I've worked with is understand nobody's going to listen in the beginning anyway. Like the 5 people who listen to your first episode, or 10 or 15 people, they're not as focused on your insecurities as you are. That's such a huge thing of, I would rather you just start, because you can't improve a product that doesn't exist yet. Just start. Take the reason you wanted to start in the first place and really sit with that. And then you don't even need a microphone to start. Get a pair of wired headphones, plug them into your laptop, plug them into your phone, and just start recording. And honestly, I think that once that part's done, you can figure out how to record an intro. You can figure out how to record an outro and a mid-tro, and you can figure out how to get the music and what host to use. But you have to understand that one of 2 things is going to happen. And this is what I've seen. In the very beginning, everybody is going to support you. Everybody, your friends, your family, they're going to be like, oh my goodness, I can't believe you did this. This is the most amazing thing in the world. 2 months later, they're all going to trickle off and they're going to forget because it's not the new thing. And that's where it really starts to matter. That's where your 1% improvement, that's where you're focused on making the product better. It starts to matter. In the very beginning, just create the least viable product. Like the lowest viable product, whatever you can do to get out there, and then focus on the improvement. I think too many people want to launch perfect.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing. There's no such thing. I've had clients who they're very averse to technology. And in my mind, I want to they have the money, they have the means. I want them to get a Sony A7 III like I have. I want them to get a mixer and an audio interface and the best microphone and the lighting, but it's not doable. It's too overwhelming. I have to lower the barrier to entry so they'll actually start and get momentum. So that's what I would say is understand, go look at Joe Rogan's first podcast. Go look at John Lee Dumas's first podcast, Evan Carmichael's first YouTube video. The people who are prolific in this, they sucked at the beginning too. And I'll add this, I still get imposter syndrome. I still get that. I think that's par for the course for a lot of people. It's okay. It gets easier as you get better, but that's something that you overcome with reps. That's something you overcome with the internal game more than the product. You can have the best product in the world, the best studio in the world. If you feel like an imposter, you're actually going to feel more like an imposter. So you got to launch. You just got to launch. Right on.
A coach of mine one time, a media coach of mine, I'm talking like TV media and everything too. He goes, if you play it cool, you'll look like the fool. Yeah. It's like, just get on there, just do it. You know, all you have to do is be yourself, and even more so, be like extra yourself. Yeah. You know, not what you feel people want you to be, but everything that you feel is a good quality about you, just put it out there to the world.
Yeah.
You know, and Kevin, I think everybody can take a note from you today too, you know, especially like the story that you told today, right? Which is so heartfelt and just so human, man. And for everyone who's listening too, it's that vulnerability is also so important when you do these things. For sure. Because the story you absolutely don't want to tell is the story that you most likely should be telling. Yep. To everybody. Yep. That's what's going to connect with people.
Yeah. my business partner, Alan, and I, we do a live podcast every week. We're coming up on week 100. I don't know. It's been 2 years almost. And we do one live in our Facebook group every week. And we did one on the power of vulnerability. And I talked about how I dealt with a pornography addiction. And it's hard and it sucks to talk about and it's embarrassing. But afterwards, I had people message me. Vulnerability opens the conversation. It's the bridge that allows somebody else to say, me too. Yeah. Because it's very hard for somebody to come out and say, this is happening to me. But when you say it, they can say, me too. They can say it quietly from the shadows and they feel safe. Vulnerability is such an important thing. I feel that particularly as a man with tattoos and a bodybuilder who loves combat, I think it's important for me to be that because I want to be an example for other people. I think it's super important.
Right on, brother. Right on. I love how you say, hey, just start there too, because you just need the headphones and everything else. When I started the show, it was in a professional studio. That's just because I hired a branding company. I already made it to a certain level in business, but I pulled from a lot of my musical background. So I had been on stages, and even some of that stuff when we built the studio here, I pulled, which is why I don't use regular headphones. I use in-ear monitors, so I can be, completely hot. Plus I don't like stuff squashing my hair. It's just a personal preference of mine, but I remember going all the way back because it wasn't, the guitars I ended up buying, ended up being like $4,000 Taylor acoustics, but where I started was a cheap pawn shop guitar for $10 that I had to swap the saddle on myself. So I put another $10 into it. And that's the thing that I used and got up in front of 300 people and played music at a church.
Yeah.
At the very beginning, it's like, whatever, it's not going to stop me, And I look back at that and I found the guitar a few years ago and I think I ended up throwing it out. I'm like, well, I can't play it anymore. But then I looked at it, I'm like, man, where everything started, it was just such a humbling place for all of this. And even when you look back at, like you said, at your first podcast episode, and I look back at mine and you think, wow, that was pretty horrible, wasn't it? It's like how many downloads did we get on that? Like 3?
I did that last night, Rick.
Did you?
When I get high emotionally and things are doing really well and business is going great and everything seems like it's awesome, I always look back at how, I don't want to say how bad, but how much I've grown. I looked at episode 100 of our show. We weren't in the studio. We had different mics. The lighting was garbage. The backdrop was just a black curtain. And we had a skeleton as a mascot with a tank top on.
That's awesome.
So it's important to understand that, 100 episodes in, you think you'd have it figured out, but you always have room to figure it out more. And you'll never get to 100 if you don't start with 1.
Dude, that's incredible. Do you still have that skeleton?
No, his name was Steve McQueen. He has moved on to the afterlife.
Dude, that's hilarious. Man, I really appreciate you being on and just having some real talk about how to get started on these things. Been incredible, man. We can find you at nextleveluniverse.com, of course, but I love your Instagram handle, Never Quit Kid.
Yes.
That's incredible, dude. Keep going. I'm sure you will. Thanks so much for being on, Kev.
Of course, Rick. Thank you. I enjoy the conversation and I enjoy what you're doing very much.
Thank you.